He smelled like expensive cologne and cheap lies, and everyone in this ballroom believed him. I shouldn't have come. The thought hit me the second I walked through the crystal doors of the Ashford estate, New Jersey's most exclusive venue for people who measured their worth in zeros. Chandeliers dripped light across marble floors, and champagne flutes clinked like tiny bells announcing my mistake. But I needed the portfolio contract from the art gallery hosting tonight's charity auction. Needed it badly enough to ignore every instinct screaming at me to turn around. That was my first error. My second was making eye contact with Derek Hastings. My ex-boyfriend stood near the silent auction table, surrounded by his usual pack of alphas and betas who laughed too loud and smiled too sharp. He wore a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than my rent, his ash blonde hair swept back in that effortlessly perfect way that used to make my heart stutter. Now it just made my stomach turn. His ice blue eyes locked onto mine across the room, and I felt it. The sudden spike of malicious glee that radiated from his mind like heat off asphalt. Oh, this is going to be good, his thoughts whispered into my consciousness, sharp and eager. Poor little Ethan actually showed his face. I kept my expression neutral and turned toward the bar, pulse hammering against my ribs. My ability to hear thoughts wasn't something I advertised. In fact, exactly 3 people in the world knew about it. My late mother, my best friend Lucas, and me. Derek wasn't one of them, and he never would be. Ethan? Ethan Ross? His voice carried across the marble like a knife scraping glass. Conversations dimmed, heads turned. I gripped my glass of sparkling water and didn't look back. Oh my God, it is you! Derek's footsteps echoed closer, his internal monologue buzzing with vindictive excitement. I didn't think you'd actually show up to something like this. I mean, his hand landed on my shoulder, spinning me around with just enough force to make it look accidental. Who invited you, poor guy? The words landed exactly as he intended. A few nearby guests looked away quickly, embarrassed for me. Others watched with barely concealed interest, hungry for drama. Derek's smile was all teeth. I'm serious, man. This event is like $5,000 a plate. Did you sneak in through the kitchen or? Look at him in that off-the-rack suit. Pathetic. I can't believe I ever wasted 2 years on someone so beneath me. His thoughts tasted like acid on my tongue. I took a slow breath and let my gaze drift over him with the kind of bored indifference I'd perfected over the last 6 months. Derek, still compensating with volume, I see. His smile twitched. I'm here for work, I continued, keeping my voice level and light. The gallery hired me to photograph tonight's pieces, but thanks for your concern about my financial status. Real thoughtful. One of his friends, a beta named Craig with too much gel in his hair, snorted into his champagne. Derek's jaw tightened. He thinks he's so clever. I should have dumped him publicly instead of just ghosting him. Would have saved him the delusion that he ever mattered. Right, the photography thing. Derek waved a hand dismissively. That's cute. I forgot you were still doing that hobby. It's my career, actually. Sure. He leaned in, voice dropping to a stage whisper loud enough for half the room to hear. But seriously, Ethan, you shouldn't be here. These people, he gestured vaguely at the glittering crowd. They're not like you. You're going to embarrass yourself. And me by association. God, why won't he just disappear? Something cold and sharp twisted in my chest, but I kept my expression smooth. I'd spent 24 years learning how to hide what I felt, how to smile while my mind filled with other people's cruelty. This was nothing new. I appreciate the advice, I said, voice soft as silk over steel. But I'm good. Derek's eyes narrowed. For a second, I thought he might actually back off. Then his gaze dropped to my left hand. Wait. His voice sharpened with fresh interest. Are you wearing a wedding ring? My heart stopped. I'd forgotten. In my rush to get here on time, I'd forgotten to take it off. The plain platinum band sat on my ring finger like a burning brand, simple and understated and completely out of place on someone Derek had just publicly labeled as poor. No way, no fucking way did this nobody actually find someone desperate enough to marry him. That's cute, Derek said, his smile turning venomous. Let me guess, courthouse wedding? Or did you find some old man willing to sponsor your little art projects in exchange for... Careful. The word came out colder than I intended, and for just a second, I let Derek see the edge beneath my calm. His thoughts stuttered with confusion and something that might have been unease. But then Craig laughed and the moment broke. Oh man, he actually got married? Craig shook his head in disbelief. Who the hell? The ballroom doors opened, and every conversation in the room died. I didn't need to turn around to know who just entered. I felt it, the sudden shift in the air, the weight of attention swinging like a spotlight toward the entrance. But it was the thought that crashed into my mind from a dozen sources at once that confirmed it. Dante Sterling just walked in. Oh my God, is that the Dante Sterling? What is he doing here? My hand tightened around my glass, and despite every instinct telling me not to, I turned around. My pulse stuttered. The man standing in the doorway didn't walk into the ballroom. He owned it the second he crossed the threshold. And Dante Sterling was taller than I remembered from the blurry tabloid photos, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than my entire year's rent. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and devastating symmetry. But it was his eyes that made my breath catch. Storm gray and cold enough to frost glass. And they were looking directly at me. My heart kicked against my ribs like it was trying to escape. No. He's not supposed to be here yet. We'd agreed. 30 more minutes. I was supposed to grab the gallery contact, leave quietly and meet him at the car. That was the plan. But here he was, cutting through the crowd like a knife through silk. And every single person in this ballroom was watching him move toward me. Okay, Ethan? Derek's voice cracked slightly. His thoughts were a mess of confusion and dawning horror. Why is Dante Sterling looking at him? Why is he... I couldn't answer, couldn't breathe, because Dante's scent hit me like a physical force. Winter pine and smoke. Clean and sharp and utterly, devastatingly alpha. It wrapped around my senses and pulled, tugging at something deep in my chest that I'd spent 6 months trying to ignore in public. The mating bond hummed to life under my skin, warm and insistent. Breathe, I told myself. Just breathe. But then Dante was right there, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, and my Omega instincts were screaming at me to step closer, to tilt my head, to... Husband. The word fell into the silence like a stone into still water. Nor every head in the ballroom swiveled between us. Dante's expression didn't change. He could have been commenting on the weather for all the emotion he showed, but his scent intensified, wrapping tighter around me, possessive and undeniable. I told you to wait in the car, he said, voice low and smooth as expensive whiskey. I blinked up at him, trying to remember how words worked. I had a job. His gaze flicked past me to Derek, and the temperature in the room dropped 5 degrees. I see. Derek made a sound like a dying fish. Husband. Husband? This broke little Omega is married to Dante fucking Sterling? His thoughts were so loud I almost winced. I should have felt vindicated. Should have enjoyed watching Derek's face cycle through shock, disbelief, and pure mortified horror. But all I could focus on was Dante's hand settling on the small of my back, warm through the fabric of my suit jacket, and the way my entire nervous system lit up at the contact. 6 months of marriage, and I still wasn't used to him touching me in public. Hell, I wasn't used to him touching me at all. Dante Sterling, Derek stammered, his voice climbing half an octave. Sir, we were just... His thoughts scrambled frantically. Play it cool. Salvage this. He can't actually care about this nobody. Apologizing? Dante's tone could have cut diamonds. His hand pressed slightly firmer against my back. A silent claim. I certainly hope so. Derek's face flushed red. We went to college together. Ethan and we used to date, I supplied helpfully, finally finding my voice. Until he ghosted me and started telling people I was clingy and desperate. Dante's fingers flexed against my spine, the only sign he'd heard me, but his scent shifted, sharpening with something that tasted like barely leashed violence. Derek went pale. That's not... it was a misunderstanding. Oh, God. Oh, God, I'm so fucked. Sterling Controls owns half the commercial real estate in New Jersey. My firm does contracts with them. If he... A misunderstanding, Dante repeated, each word precise and cold. His gray eyes hadn't left Derek's face. Interesting. The silence stretched. Craig had disappeared. The other alphas who'd been laughing at Derek's jokes 5 minutes ago were suddenly very interested in the silent auction table across the room. I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from smiling. I think, I said quietly, tilting my head up to meet Dante's gaze, we should go. I got the shots I needed. For just a second, something flickered in those storm gray eyes. Something that might have been approval or amusement, or it was gone before I could name it. Of course. Dante's hand slid from my back to my wrist, his fingers circling the delicate bones with careful possession. We have dinner reservations. He turned, pulling me with him, and I let myself be led because my legs had apparently forgotten how to function independently. But then Derek's voice cut through the silence, shrill with humiliation and desperate spite. You can't seriously be married to him. We stopped. I felt Dante's pulse jump beneath his calm exterior, felt the predatory stillness that settled over him like a hunting cat spotting prey. You're right, Dante said without turning around. I can't be. My heart plummeted. Then he looked back over his shoulder, expression carved from ice and promise. I'm not married to him. I'm mated to him. There's a difference. One you'll understand when your firm's contract renewal comes up next month. Derek's face went gray. Dante's fingers tightened fractionally around my wrist, and he started walking again, pulling me through the stunned crowd toward the exit. I followed in a daze, my mind spinning. Derek's silent scream of panic echoing in my skull. He's going to ruin me. Oh God, he's actually going to ruin me. We stepped out into the cool night air, and Dante released my wrist immediately, putting 3 feet of distance between us like he couldn't bear the contact a second longer than necessary. My Omega whined softly at the loss. I shoved it down and tried to remember how to think past the scent of winter pine still flooding my senses. You didn't have to do that, I said quietly. Dante's jaw tightened. Yes, I did. He's not worth... He touched you. Each word came out clipped and sharp. He humiliated you in front of witnesses, and he called you poor. I blinked. Technically, compared to you, you're mine. The word hit me like a physical blow. Dante's eyes met mine in the amber glow of the estate lights, and for the first time since he'd walked into that ballroom, I saw real emotion crack through his control. Fury, possessive and absolute. No one speaks to what's mine that way, he said softly, ever. My breath caught, and I realized with sudden, terrifying clarity that I had no idea who I'd actually married. The words hung between us like a live wire. I should have said something, should have laughed it off or made some sarcastic comment about alpha possessiveness and outdated hierarchy dynamics. But my voice had apparently taken a vacation, and all I could do was stare at him while my Omega purred like a damn cat in my chest. Mine. He said mine. Don't do that, I finally managed, voice coming out rougher than intended. Dante's expression shuddered immediately. Do what? Pretend you actually care. I stepped back, putting more distance between us, ignoring the way my instincts screamed in protest. We both know what this is. A business arrangement. You needed an Omega for your PAX optics, and I trailed off, swallowing hard. Oh, it needed what? His voice was dangerously soft. Needed to disappear. Needed protection from people who wanted to dissect my brain and figure out how the telepathy works. Needed someone powerful enough that no one would dare touch me. But I couldn't say that. Wouldn't give him that piece of myself. Financial stability, I said instead, lifting my chin. Let's not pretend this is some grand romance, Dante. You bought yourself a convenient Omega, and I got a very generous bank account and a safe place to crash. Win-win. Something flickered across his face. Hurt, maybe, or anger. It vanished before I could read it. Of course, he said. voice returning to that infuriatingly neutral tone he used in business meetings. How foolish of me to forget. He turned toward the black Mercedes idling at the curb. And I hated how much I wanted to grab his arm and take it back. You're being an idiot, I told myself firmly. He doesn't actually want you. He wants the pretty Omega accessory who makes his pack look progressive and modern. Except that didn't explain the fury in his scent when Derek had mocked me. Didn't explain the way his hand had felt against my back, possessive and warm and right. Didn't explain why he'd shown up 30 minutes early and demolished my ex-boyfriend's social standing with 3 sentences. Ethan, Dante paused with his hand on the car door. Are you coming, or should I have Marcus drive you separately? The question was polite, almost bored, but his scent was still sharp with barely leashed aggression. Winter pine and smoke mixing with something darker that made my pulse jump. I can get an Uber, I said, just to be difficult. His jaw tightened. Get in the car. Wow, so romantic. Really sweeping me off my feet here. Ethan. My name came out like a warning. I'm not in the mood for games. Good thing I'm not playing one. I pulled out my phone, making a show of opening the Uber app. You go ahead. I'll see you at home. Home. The word tasted strange. We'd been married for 6 months, living in his penthouse in downtown Newark, and I still couldn't call it that without feeling like an imposter. Dante moved so fast I barely registered it. 1 second he was by the car. The next he was right in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Do you have any idea, he said quietly, what it looked like when I walked in and saw him touching you? My breath hitched. Derek wasn't. His hand was on your shoulder. His scent was all over you. Dante's eyes had gone molten silver, and his voice dropped to something rough and barely controlled. Do you know what it took not to rip his throat out in front of 300 witnesses? Oh, my Omega was doing backflips, practically singing hallelujah. My brain was trying very hard to maintain some dignity. You don't own me, I said, but it came out breathless instead of defiant. Don't I? He was so close now I could feel the heat coming off him in waves, could smell the way his scent had shifted into something dark and hungry that made every nerve ending in my body light up. You're wearing my ring, he continued, voice soft and devastating. You carry my mark. His eyes dropped to my neck where the mating bite sat hidden beneath my collar. Shorty, you sleep in my bed. On the couch, I corrected weakly. I sleep on the couch in your room. By choice. His hand came up, fingers brushing the side of my throat so gently I barely felt it. I've never forced you into anything, Ethan. But don't stand here and tell me this is just business when your scent has been flooding my system since the moment I walked into that ballroom. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. His thumb traced over my pulse point, and I felt the moment he registered how fast my heart was racing. You want me, he said simply. Your body knows it even if you won't admit it. Arrogant much? I tried for sarcasm, but my voice shook. Observant. His eyes met mine, and there was something raw in them that made my stomach flip. I can smell how much you want this, and how much you're fighting it. Maybe I just don't want to be another conquest. The words came out sharp, defensive. Another pretty Omega for the great Dante Sterling to collect. His hand dropped like I'd burned him. The loss of contact felt like a physical ache. Is that what you think? His voice had gone cold again, distant. That you're a conquest? Yes. No. I don't know. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly freezing in the cool night air. I think we should stick to our arrangement. You do your mafia billionaire thing, I do my photography, and we show up together at events when your pack needs the optics. Clean, simple, safe? Safe, Dante repeated like the word was poison. Yes. He stared at me for a long moment, and I couldn't read his thoughts. He was one of the few people whose mind I couldn't access, which was either incredibly inconvenient or the only reason I'd agreed to marry him in the first place. Probably both. Fine, he said finally. If that's what you want. It wasn't. God help me, it absolutely wasn't. But I nodded anyway. Dante opened the car door, sliding into the back seat with the kind of fluid grace that shouldn't be legal. He looked up at me through the open door, expression carved from ice. Get in, Ethan. I'm not leaving you here alone. It wasn't a request. I climbed into the car, keeping as much distance between us as the leather seats allowed. Marcus pulled away from the curb, and silence filled the space like a living thing. I stared out the window, watching the lights of New Jersey blur past, and tried not to notice how Dante's scent still clung to my skin. So, tried not to think about how much I wanted to close the distance between us and take back every stupid word I just said. This is better, I told myself firmly. Safer, less complicated. But when I glanced at Dante's reflection in the window, I caught him staring at me with an expression that looked almost like grief. And I realized that keeping my distance might protect my heart, but it was slowly killing his. The thought sat in my chest like a stone. I opened my mouth to say something. Apologize, maybe, or take back the venom I just spat at him. But Dante turned his head toward the window, and the moment shattered. The silence in the car was suffocating. Not angry, just heavy, like the air before a storm that never quite breaks. I focused on breathing, in through my nose, out through my mouth. When trying to ignore how his scent filled every molecule of oxygen in this enclosed space. Winter pine, smoke, and underneath it all, something that smelled like loneliness. Stop it, I told myself. You're projecting. Marcus navigated through downtown Newark's evening traffic with practiced ease, the partition between the front and back seats giving us the illusion of privacy, which was exactly the problem. There was nowhere to escape, no buffering distance. Just me, Dante, and 6 months of unresolved tension compressed into the backseat of a Mercedes. My fingers twisted in my lap, and I caught myself glancing at him from the corner of my eye. He'd loosened his tie slightly, the first sign of anything less than perfect control I'd seen all evening. His jaw was tight, and he still wasn't looking at me. But his hand rested on the seat between us, fingers curled loosely against the leather, so close I could touch him if I wanted to. Don't. I shifted slightly, trying to create more space, and my knee brushed against his thigh. Dante went absolutely still. The contact lasted maybe half a second before I jerked away, but the damage was done. My skin burned where we'd touched, and my Omega was practically clawing at my ribcage, begging me to move closer instead of further away. Sorry, I muttered. Don't be. His voice was rough, quieter than before. It's a small space. Yeah. Another stretch of silence. The city lights painted shifting patterns across his face, and I couldn't stop watching the way shadows moved across his features. God, he was beautiful, unfairly, devastatingly beautiful in a way that made my chest ache. And I just told him he meant nothing to me. Liar, my Omega whispered. Coward. The car hit a pothole, and I lurched sideways before I could catch myself. Dante's hand shot out, catching my wrist and steadying me with reflexes too fast to be anything but alpha instinct. Careful, he said softly, but he didn't let go. His thumb rested against my pulse point, and I knew he could feel how fast my heart was racing. Knew he could probably smell the spike of arousal and fear and confused longing radiating off me in waves. Dante, I breathed, tell me to stop. His eyes met mine, and there was something desperate in them that made my stomach flip. Tell me you don't want this, and I'll let go. I'll give you all the space you need. I'll sleep in one of the guest rooms tonight instead of on the floor beside the couch where you insist on staying. I blinked. You? What? Did you think I actually slept in my bed? A bitter smile ghosted across his lips. I haven't slept there since our wedding night. Can't stand the thought of being that far from you. My breath caught. He sleeps on the floor. He's been sleeping on the floor for 6 months because I wouldn't share the bed. Why didn't you say anything? My voice came out smaller than I intended. Because you asked for space. His grip on my wrist tightened fractionally, just enough for me to feel the tremor in his fingers. Because you made it very clear that you wanted this to be a business arrangement, and I'm trying, Ethan. Oh, I'm trying so goddamn hard to give you what you need. Even if it's killing you. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Dante's expression cracked, just for a second, and I saw the raw ache beneath his controlled exterior. Yes, he said simply. Even then, Something in my chest broke. I'd spent 6 months convinced he didn't care, that I was just another acquisition, another piece on his chessboard, another pretty thing to parade around at pack functions. But the man staring at me with storm gray eyes and trembling hands wasn't playing games. He was breaking. Quietly. Carefully. Trying so hard not to let me see. "I don't know how to do this," I whispered. The confession cost me, but I forced it out anyway. "I don't know how to be what you need." "You think I do?" His laugh was sharp and humorless. "Ethan, I'm 32 years old and I've never felt anything close to what I feel when you're in the same room. It terrifies me." "You're not supposed to be terrified of anything." I meant it as a joke, but it came out too honest. "You're Dante Sterling, billionaire, mafia legacy, alpha of one of the most powerful packs on the East Coast. And you're the Omega who won't let me touch him." His thumb traced a gentle circle against my racing pulse. "The one who sleeps on a couch instead of in my bed. The one who flinches every time I get too close, like he's waiting for me to hurt him." Because I am. The thought must have shown on my face because Dante's expression softened into something that looked almost like grief. "I would never," he said quietly. "I know you don't believe me. I know you think this is temporary or fake, or some kind of transaction, but I would burn this entire city down before I let anyone hurt you, including myself." My eyes stung. I wanted to believe him, wanted it so badly it physically hurt. But 6 months ago, I'd been in a lab, strapped to a table while people in white coats discussed my brain like it was government property. 6 months ago, I'd been lab rat number 73, the Omega with the unique neurological anomaly that made me valuable enough to kidnap and dissect. And then Dante had walked in with his lawyers and his cold fury and his marriage contract that got me out legally before anyone could stop him. I owed him my freedom, maybe my life, but trusting him with my heart, that was something else entirely. "I don't know if I can do this," I admitted, voice breaking. "I don't know if I know how to be loved without it destroying me." Dante's hand moved from my wrist to cup my face, his palm warm against my cheek. "Then let me teach you," he murmured. "Let me show you what it looks like when someone chooses you. Not because they want something from you, but because they can't imagine existing without you." His forehead rested against mine, and I felt his breath ghost across my lips. Neither of us moved. We just stayed there, suspended in the space between wanting and having, while the city blurred past outside and Marcus pretended very hard not to notice his boss falling apart in the back seat. "What if I break you?" I whispered. "You already are," Dante said, "and I'm still here." The words settled between us like a promise. I should have pulled back, should have laughed it off or made some self-deprecating joke to cut the tension. But his hand was still cupping my face, thumb brushing just below my cheekbone, and I couldn't remember why I'd been fighting this so hard. "Dante," I whispered, and his name tasted different on my tongue, less like a shield and more like surrender. His eyes darkened. "Say it again." "That's not fair." "Nothing about this is fair." His voice was rough, barely controlled. "You walk around smelling like rain and honey, looking at me like you can see straight through me, and I'm supposed to pretend I don't want to." He stopped himself, jaw tightening. "Want to what?" I challenged, finding some scrap of bravery buried under 6 months of fear. "Everything." The word came out broken. "I want everything with you. And you won't even let me hold your hand." My breath hitched. And that's when his thoughts crashed into my mind. "Please, please just let me have this one moment. Just this. I'll take whatever you're willing to give, and I won't ask for more. I won't push. I'll be whatever you need me to be if you'll just stop looking at me like I'm going to hurt you." I gasped, jerking back. Dante's hand fell away immediately and confusion flickered across his face. "Ethan? What? No, this doesn't happen. I can't hear him. I've never been able to hear him, but his thoughts were right there, clear as glass, flooding my senses with desperation and longing and bone-deep loneliness that made my chest ache. "I'm sorry," Dante said quickly, misreading my reaction. "I shouldn't have. I pushed too hard. I'm sorry." God, I'm such an idiot. 6 months and I still can't control myself around him. He's going to ask for separate residences now. Going to put even more walls between us, and I'll have no one to blame but myself. Stop, I whispered. He went completely still. Okay, I'll stop. I won't. No, I mean... I pressed my hands against my temples, trying to block out the cascade of his thoughts. Your mind. I can hear your mind. The silence that followed was deafening. Even his thoughts went quiet, shock blanking them into white noise. What? Dante's voice was carefully neutral, but I could feel the spike of fear underneath it now, taste the metallic edge of panic. What do you mean you can hear? Telepathy. The word tumbled out in a rush. I'm telepathic. I can hear people's thoughts, almost everyone's thoughts, but never yours. One, you were the only person I'd ever met whose mind I couldn't access, and that's why I stopped, realizing what I was about to admit. Dante's expression had gone very, very still. That's why you agreed to marry me. It wasn't a question. Yes, I admitted, the confession scraping my throat raw. The lab, the people who took me, they wanted to study my brain, figure out how the telepathy works, and they didn't particularly care if I survived the process. When you showed up with that marriage contract, I thought you were just another person who wanted to use me, but at least if I married you, I'd be legally protected. I could disappear into your life, and they couldn't touch me. His thoughts were a mess now, sharp and jagged with hurt I could feel like shards of glass. He married me to escape, not because he wanted... Christ, he never wanted me. He just needed a shield. That's not true, I said before I could stop myself. Dante's eyes snapped to mine. Stop reading my mind. I can't. It doesn't work like that. I don't control it. It just happens. And with most people, I can filter it out. But you were supposed to be silent. You've always been silent. I don't know why I can suddenly... Hear me now? He finished, voice hollow. Probably because I'm too emotionally compromised to maintain whatever mental shields I apparently have. Great. Perfect. Now he knows exactly how pathetic I am. How much I've been pining after someone who sees me as nothing more than convenient protection. Stop it, I said sharply. Stop thinking that. Why should I? Bitterness leaked into his tone. It's true, isn't it? Well, you married me because I was useful, because my name and my money and my pack could keep you safe. Not because you actually wanted you, I cut in, anger flaring hot in my chest. You think I spent 6 months torturing myself with distance because I felt nothing? You think I sleep on that couch because I'm indifferent? He stared at me. I sleep there because if I get in that bed with you, I won't be able to leave. The words ripped out of me, raw and honest. Because every instinct I have is screaming at me to curl up against you and never let go. And that terrifies me more than anything those lab coats ever did to me. Dante's breath caught. You want to know why I can suddenly hear your thoughts? I continued, on a roll now. Because I'm falling apart. Sure, because you walked into that ballroom and defended me like I actually mattered, and you held my wrist in this car like I was something precious, and I can't keep lying to myself anymore. Lying about what? His voice was barely a whisper. That this is just business. I met his eyes, letting him see the truth I'd been hiding. That I don't wake up every morning wanting to touch you. That I don't spend hours memorizing the sound of your voice. That I didn't fall for you approximately 3 weeks after our wedding, when you brought me coffee without asking and remembered exactly how I like it. The car had stopped moving. I hadn't even noticed. We were parked outside the penthouse building, city lights reflecting off glass and steel, and Marcus had very wisely stepped out to give us privacy. Dante was staring at me like I'd just rewritten every assumption he'd ever made. 3 weeks? He repeated faintly. 3 weeks, I confirmed. You wore that gray sweater, the soft one, and you smiled at me over your laptop like I was someone worth smiling at, and I was gone. He fell for me. He actually... Oh, God, I've been sleeping on the floor for 6 months, thinking he barely tolerated me, and he... Yes, I said softly, answering the thought he hadn't spoken aloud. I fell for you, and it scared me so much I built walls and convinced myself you only wanted me for appearance's sake, because that was easier than risking my heart. Dante's hand moved slowly, carefully, like I was something wild that might bolt. His fingers threaded through mine, and the touch sent electricity racing up my arm. I knew about the telepathy, he said quietly. My world tilted. What? The lab kept records. When I acquired the building they were operating out of, let's just say I'm very thorough about knowing what happened on my properties. His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. I knew what they'd done to you, what they wanted to do, and I couldn't let that happen. So you married me. Understanding dawned, cold and clear. You knew I'd say yes because you knew I needed protection. No, his voice was fierce. I married you because the second I saw your file, saw your picture, I knew I'd do whatever it took to keep you safe. The marriage contract was the fastest legal way to get you out. And yes, I knew you'd agree because you needed protection. But I was hoping, he stopped, swallowing hard. I was hoping that eventually you might want me for more than that. My heart stuttered in my chest. You manipulated me, I said, but there was no heat in it. Yes, he admitted, and I'd do it again. Because you're alive and safe and sitting in my car instead of dissected in some government lab. Please don't hate me for it, please. I know I should have told you, should have been honest from the start, but I was terrified you'd run if you knew I already... Already what? I prompted softly. His eyes met mine, storm gray and vulnerable. Already loved you, he finished, from the first moment I saw you, and every day since. The confession hung in the air between us like something sacred and terrifying. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the way those 3 words had just rewired my entire understanding of the last 6 months. I loved you from the first moment. That's... I started, then stopped because my voice was shaking. That's insane. Dante's laugh was soft and broken. I'm aware. You saw my file, a government document with my face attached. That's not... You can't fall in love with someone from a photograph. Tell that to my heart. His thumb was still tracing circles on the back of my hand, and the gentle touch was destroying me. Tell that to the part of me that knew, the second I saw you, that I'd never be the same. He thinks I'm going to run, thinks I'll pull away now that I know the truth. God, please don't run. I can't. I need... Stop, I whispered, and his face fell. I know. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. No, I mean, stop thinking I'm going to leave. I squeezed his hand, probably harder than necessary. I can hear you spiraling and you need to stop. His eyes widened fractionally. I keep forgetting you can hear every self-destructive thought running through that brilliant, stupid brain of yours, I supplied. Yeah, it's new for me too, trust me. And it's kind of overwhelming because you think so much and half of it is about me and the other half is about whether I'm going to disappear and... I was rambling. I did that when I got nervous. Dante's free hand came up to cup my face again, thumb brushing across my cheekbone in a touch so gentle it made my chest ache. Breathe, he said softly. I sucked in air, realizing I'd been talking on empty lungs. Better? He asked. Not really. You just told me you love me. I'm allowed to be a mess about it. The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Fair enough. We stared at each other in the dim interior of the car, close enough that I could count his eyelashes if I wanted to. See the tiny scar above his left eyebrow that I'd never noticed before. I don't know what I'm doing, I admitted quietly. No one's ever loved me before. Not like this. Idiots. They were all idiots for not seeing how extraordinary you are. The thought hit me with such fierce conviction that I had to blink back sudden tears. Stop being perfect, I muttered. It's really inconvenient. I'm not perfect. His voice was rough. I'm possessive and controlling, and I threatened to destroy your ex's entire career because he called you poor. Okay, that was kind of hot though. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Dante went very, very still. What? Heat flooded my face. Nothing. Forget I said anything. Ethan. My name was half warning, half plea. You can't just say something like that and take it back. Watch me. I tried to pull away, but his hand tightened on mine. You thought it was hot when I defended you. I thought a lot of things were hot, okay? You in that suit. You threatening Derek. You saying I'm yours like you actually meant it. Can we move on? He thinks I'm attractive. He thinks, oh God, I'm not going to survive this conversation. You're kind of loud, I informed him. Thought-wise, just so you know. Dante's expression shifted into something that might have been amusement if it wasn't so thoroughly colored by want. Am I? Very, it's distracting. Good. He leaned in slightly and my breath caught. Because you've been distracting me for 6 months, and I think it's only fair. That's not how fairness works. No? His nose brushed against mine, barely a touch, and my entire nervous system short-circuited. Then how does it work, Ethan? I couldn't answer. Couldn't think past the way his scent was wrapping around me like a living thing, warm and safe and utterly devastating. Tell me to stop, he whispered against my lips. Tell me you don't want this, and I'll pull back. I'll give you space. I'll sleep in the guest room like I should have done months ago. Please don't ask me to stop. Please. What if I don't want space? The words tumbled out, raw and honest. What if I'm tired of pretending I don't want you? His breath hitched. Then stop pretending. The kiss was inevitable, soft and careful and earth-shatteringly gentle. Dante's lips moved against mine like I was something precious, something worth savoring, and I made a sound that might have been his name, or a plea, or both. Finally, God, finally. He tastes like everything I've been missing, like home. I kissed him back, threading my free hand into his hair and tugging him closer, because gentle wasn't enough anymore. I needed more, needed to erase 6 months of distance and fear and stubborn pride. Dante growled softly against my mouth, and the sound vibrated through my entire body. He pulled back just far enough to murmur, if we don't stop now, I'm going to do something extremely inappropriate in the back seat of this car. Promises, promises, I breathed. And he laughed, actually laughed, low and rough and so unexpected that I felt it in my bones. You're going to be the death of me, he said, pressing his forehead to mine. You know that, right? Pretty sure the feeling's mutual. We stayed like that, breathing each other's air, while the world continued outside our small bubble. His thoughts were quieter now, softer, filled with wonder and disbelief and bone-deep relief. He kissed me back. I thought I'd never. I'm sorry, I whispered. Dante pulled back slightly. For what? For making you wait. For making you think I didn't. I swallowed hard. I was scared. I'm still scared. Of me? Of this. I gestured between us. Of how much I feel. Of what happens when you realize I'm not worth all this trouble. His expression turned fierce. That's never going to happen. You don't know that. Yes, I do. His hands framed my face, holding me like I was the most important thing in the world. Because I've seen you at your worst. I've seen you scared and angry and pushing me away with both hands. And I still wake up every morning grateful that you're in my life. My eyes burned. That's really unfair. What is? Saying things like that when I'm trying really hard not to cry in front of you. He smiled, soft and devastating. You're allowed to cry. I won't tell anyone. Your reputation would never recover if people knew you made your Omega cry in the back of a Mercedes. Worth it, he said simply, then quieter. Come to bed with me tonight. My heart stuttered. Dante. Just to sleep, he clarified quickly. I can't keep sleeping on the floor, Ethan. And I don't want you on that couch anymore. We don't have to do anything. I just want to hold you. Can I do that? Can I just hold you? The vulnerability in his voice cracked something open in my chest. Yeah, I whispered. You can hold me. His smile could have lit up the entire city. And in that moment, surrounded by his scent and his warmth and the overwhelming evidence of how much he cared. I let myself believe that maybe this could work, that maybe I could have this, that maybe for once in my life, I deserve something beautiful. I should have known better. Beautiful things in my life never lasted long. The thought should have been a warning. Instead, I shoved it down and let Dante help me out of the car, his hand warm and steady around mine as we walked toward the building entrance. Marcus nodded at us as we passed, his expression carefully neutral, though I caught the edge of his thoughts. Relief. Mostly. Happiness that his boss finally looked less like a man walking to his execution. The lobby was empty this late, just polished marble and soft lighting that made everything feel dreamlike. Dante's thumb traced circles on the back of my hand as we waited for the private elevator, and I let myself lean into him slightly, testing, seeing if this new thing between us would hold weight. He pulled me closer immediately, tucking me against his side like I belonged there. This is real, his thoughts whispered. He's real. This is actually happening. My chest ached with how much he wanted this, how much he wanted me. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. We stepped inside and Dante hit the button for the penthouse without letting go of my hand. The doors slid shut, cocooning us in mirrored walls and soft music. What are you thinking? He asked quietly. I glanced up at him. That's cheating. You could just listen to my thoughts now. Doesn't work that way for me, remember? His mouth quirked. I'm the silent one. You're the mind reader. Lucky you, I muttered. My brain is very loud and mostly unhelpful. I doubt that. Trust me. Right now it's 50% screaming about how good you smell and 50% panicking about the fact that we're about to share a bed. His expression softened. We don't have to... I want to, I interrupted. I'm just not used to wanting things or having them. The elevator slowed to a stop and the doors opened directly into the penthouse. Dante stepped out first, still holding my hand, and I followed, then stopped dead. There were people in our living room, 3 of them. 2 men in expensive suits flanking a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a boardroom and decided to redecorate with ice and diamonds. And their thoughts hit me like a freight train. Finally. Took him long enough to bring the asset home. Sterling better have him under control. We can't afford another delay. 6 months of waiting for the telepath to bond properly. If this falls through... My hand went numb in Dante's grip. Councilwoman Ashford, Dante said, his voice shifting into something cold and professional. I wasn't expecting you tonight. Damn it. Why is she here now? I told them I needed more time. The woman smiled, sharp as a knife. We need to discuss the timeline, Dante. The senator is getting impatient. And you promised us results by the end of the quarter. My brain was trying very hard to process what I was hearing, both out loud and in the cascade of thoughts flooding my senses. The Omega looks confused. Good. Means Sterling kept him in the dark like we agreed. 6 months of pretending this was a real marriage. Wonder if Sterling actually caught feelings or if he's just that good an actor. We need the telepath operational before the election. Too many senators to read. Too little time. Results? I heard myself say, voice coming out stranger than intended. All 3 of them looked at me like I was a particularly interesting lab specimen, which apparently I was. Ethan, Dante started, and I felt his panic spike through our connection. Let me explain. Explain what? I pulled my hand from his grip, stumbling back a step. Explain why there are people in our home talking about me like I'm an asset? Explain why they think you've been keeping me in the dark? Oh, this is going to be messy. Sterling definitely didn't tell him. Mr. Ross, Councilwoman Ashford said smoothly. I apologize for the confusion. We should have scheduled a proper introduction. I'm Victoria Ashford, and these are my associates. We're part of the collective that arranged your marriage to Mr. Sterling. The world tilted sideways. Arranged, I repeated flatly. Yes, your unique abilities make you quite valuable to certain political interests. She smiled like she was discussing stock portfolios. Mr. Sterling agreed to bond with you in exchange for several very lucrative contracts and a seat on the Senate Oversight Committee. All perfectly legal, I assure you. I looked at Dante. His face had gone pale, jaw tight, and his thoughts were screaming. No, no, this wasn't supposed to happen like this. I was going to tell him. I was going to explain everything. I just needed more time. Please, Ethan, please let me. You knew, I whispered. You knew they wanted to use my telepathy for political manipulation, and you married me anyway. It's not like that, Dante said, stepping toward me. I moved back. Then what's it like? Explain to me how this isn't exactly what it looks like. I love you. God, I love you so much, and I ruined everything. I should have told you from the start, but I was terrified you'd run, and I couldn't. I needed you safe first, and then I thought I could fix it, and... The council approached me 6 months ago, he said, words coming fast and desperate. They knew about you, or knew the lab had you. They wanted me to extract you and bring you into their organization. I agreed because it was the only way to get you out legally without starting a war with the government. How noble, I said, and my voice could have cut glass. So you rescued me from one group that wanted to use my brain and delivered me straight to another one? Fantastic. Really top-tier husbanding there, Dante. I was going to tell you, he insisted. I've been trying to figure out how to get you out of the contract without putting you back in danger. I swear, Ethan, I never intended... Intended what? To fall in love with your political asset? The laugh that escaped me was sharp and broken. God, I'm such an idiot. You didn't see my file and fall in love. You saw a useful tool and decided to acquire it before someone else did. That's not true. That's not... I fell in love with you. The rest was just... It was just the excuse I needed to justify taking you. Stop, I choked out. Stop thinking at me. I can't hear this right now. Councilwoman Ashford cleared her throat delicately. Perhaps we should give you two some privacy to discuss. No. I turned to face her, and something in my expression made her step back. You want my abilities? You want me to read senators and diplomats and whoever else you're planning to manipulate? Here's what I think about that. I let my power loose, flooding into her mind without permission or gentleness. Her secrets spilled across my consciousness in vivid detail. Bribes, blackmail, 3 separate affairs. A daughter she'd disowned for being an Omega. Plans to use me as a weapon until I burned out or became inconvenient. You're a monster, I said quietly, and you're terrified someone's going to find out. She went white. I turned back to Dante, and the hope dying in his eyes almost broke me. Almost. I need you to leave, I said. Ethan, please. Get out. My voice cracked. All of you. Get out of my home. It's my home, Dante said softly. Technically. The words hit like a slap. Right, I breathed. Your home, your marriage, your carefully orchestrated rescue operation. How could I forget? I walked past him toward the bedroom, vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. Behind me, I heard Councilwoman Ashford say something sharp about contracts and agreements. Heard Dante tell her, wanting in a voice colder than I'd ever heard from him, to get the hell out before he did something they'd all regret. But I didn't stop, didn't look back. I just locked myself in the bathroom and finally let myself break. The tears came hard and ugly, the kind that tore through my chest and left me gasping for air. I slid down the bathroom wall, knees pulled to my chest, and let 6 months of careful control shatter into pieces on the marble floor. Idiot. You're such an idiot. You actually thought he loved you. But that was the worst part, wasn't it? His thoughts were still echoing in my head, raw and desperate, and utterly convinced. He did love me. I'd felt it, tasted it, lived inside the aching certainty of his emotions for the last hour, which meant he loved me and sold me to a political machine. Both things were true, and I didn't know which one hurt more. A soft knock on the door made me flinch. Ethan! Dante's voice was rough, barely above a whisper. Please, let me explain. Go away. I can't. Try harder. Silence. Then the sound of him sliding down the other side of the door, settling onto the floor like he planned to wait me out. Of course he is, stubborn alpha bastard. They're gone, he said after a moment. I threatened Ashford with every legal weapon I have and told her if she ever contacts you directly again, I'll bury her so deep she'll never see daylight. I didn't answer. I know you're angry, he continued. I know I should have told you from the beginning. But Ethan, you have to understand. If I'd refused their offer, they would have found another way to get to you. Someone with less scruples. Someone who wouldn't have cared about your safety or your choices or my consent, I cut in, voice sharp. Because let's be clear, Dante. You married me under false pretenses. You made me think I was choosing safety when really I was just trading one cage for another. His thoughts crashed through the door, jagged with pain. I know, God, I know, and I hate myself for it, but I'd do it again if it meant keeping you alive. Stop justifying it, I said tiredly. Just stop. More silence. I wiped my face with shaking hands and stared at the ceiling, trying to piece together what I actually felt underneath the betrayal. Because the betrayal was real, sharp and vicious and sitting in my chest like broken glass. But so was everything else. His hand on my back at the gala, the way he'd defended me without hesitation. 6 months of sleeping on the floor because I'd asked for space. The desperate hope in his thoughts when I'd finally kissed him. You can't fake that, I thought. You can't manufacture that kind of longing. I'm a coward, I said out loud. Dante went still on the other side of the door. What? I'm a coward, I repeated louder this time. I spent 6 months hiding from you because I was terrified of being vulnerable, terrified of admitting I wanted something. And the second I finally let my guard down, the universe decided to prove me right. Ethan, no, I'm not done. I climbed to my feet, legs wobbling slightly. You want to know why I really slept on that couch? Why I kept pushing you away? Yes, he breathed. Because everyone I've ever trusted has hurt me. Tolne, my parents sold me to the lab when I was 16 because they thought my telepathy was demonic. The lab treated me like an experiment. Derek used me for 2 years and then ghosted me the second someone shinier came along. My voice cracked. And then you showed up like some kind of avenging angel, and I wanted so badly to believe you were different. But I knew better. I knew better than to trust someone who looked at me and saw value. I don't see value, Dante said roughly. I see you. Do you? I yanked open the door. He was exactly where I'd imagined, slumped against the wall with his head in his hands. He looked up when the door opened, and his eyes were red-rimmed. Do you see me? I demanded. Or do you see a useful telepath who happens to come with feelings you can't quite figure out how to manage? He flinched like I'd hit him. That's not fair, he said quietly. None of this is fair, I was shouting now, 6 months of fear and anger and desperate longing spilling out all at once. You don't get to manipulate me into a marriage and then act wounded when I don't trust you. You don't get to fall in love with me and hide the fact that you're contractually obligated to hand me over to politicians. I'm not handing you over to anyone. He stood, and even exhausted and heartbroken, he still moved like a predator. That contract is void. I've been working with lawyers for 3 months to find a way out that doesn't put you back on the government's radar. I stared at him. In what? Did you think I was just going to let them use you? His laugh was bitter. The marriage was their condition for getting you out of the lab legally. But the contract to provide your services? That has loopholes. Lots of them. And I've been systematically exploiting every single one. He's telling the truth. I can feel it. God, he's actually been fighting for me this whole time, and I never knew. Why didn't you tell me? I whispered. Because you barely let me touch you. His voice broke. Because you looked at me like I was going to hurt you, and I couldn't give you another reason to pull away. I thought if I could just fix it quietly, if I could get you free before you ever had to know what they wanted, I could fall in love with you without reservations, I finished. He nodded, throat working. And we stood there in the doorway, close enough to touch, but neither of us moving. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said honestly. Pain flashed across his face, but he nodded. I know. I don't know if I can trust that this is real. I know. And I'm furious that you thought you could make decisions about my life without consulting me. I know, he repeated. Then softer. I'm sorry. For all of it. For not telling you the truth from the beginning. For thinking I knew better than you what you needed. He swallowed hard. For falling in love with you when I had no right to. My breath caught. That's the part you regret? I asked incredulously. Not the political conspiracy or the lying by omission, but falling in love? Yes. His eyes met mine, storm gray and devastated. Because you deserve someone honest. Someone who came to you with clean hands and no ulterior motives. And instead you got me. Something in my chest cracked open. Because standing there, looking at him, I realized the truth I'd been avoiding. I didn't want someone else. I wanted this beautiful, broken man who'd ruined everything, trying to save me. You're an idiot, I said softly. Dante's mouth twitched. I'm aware. And you're going to spend a very long time making this up to me. His breath stuttered. Does that mean? It means I'm choosing to stay. I stepped closer and his eyes widened. Not because I forgive you, not because I trust you yet, but because I'm tired of running from things that scare me. I scare you? He whispered. Terrify me, I admitted, because despite everything, despite the lies and the politics and the fact that you're apparently the world's most well-intentioned disaster, I still love you. And that's the scariest thing of all. Dante made a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. So here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to tell me everything. Every detail about the council, the contract, what they wanted from me. No more secrets. Okay? And then you're going to help me burn their entire operation to the ground. A slow, dangerous smile spread across his face. Okay? And then I reached up, fingers curling into his collar. We're going to figure out what this actually is. Together. As equals. As equals, he agreed. I pulled him down and kissed him. The kiss was different this time. Not gentle or careful or tentative. This was claiming and promise, and the taste of a war we were about to wage together. Dante kissed me like I was the only thing keeping him anchored to the earth, and I kissed him back like I was finally ready to burn down the world, if that's what it took to keep him. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. Tell me the plan, he murmured. I couldn't help it. I laughed. You're asking me? You're the telepath. You're the one they underestimated. His hands framed my face, thumbs brushing my cheekbones. So yes, I'm asking you. And just like that, something clicked into place. Not the broken pieces of my trust. Those would take time, but the understanding that he meant it, that he actually saw me as an equal, not an asset. Okay, I said. Here's what we're going to do. It took exactly 72 hours to dismantle Councilwoman Ashford's entire operation. Turned out, when you could read minds, you knew exactly which senators were already uncomfortable with being manipulated, which journalists were hungry for a corruption story, which FBI agents had been waiting for concrete evidence. I fed them everything. Names, dates, bank accounts, secret meetings. And Dante, he used every connection, every favor, every ounce of his considerable power to make sure the information landed in exactly the right hands. We worked side by side in his home office, fueled by coffee and righteous anger, and the slowly rebuilding trust between us. On the third night, Dante's phone rang. He answered, listened for 30 seconds, then hung up with a smile that could have cut glass. Yeah, right, Ashford just resigned. Federal investigation pending. I slumped back in my chair, exhaustion and relief flooding through me in the equal measure. It's over. It's over. He crossed to where I sat, then hesitated. Can I? I held out my hand. He took it immediately, pulling me to my feet and into his arms. We stood like that for a long moment, just breathing each other in. I have something to tell you, Dante said quietly. My stomach clenched. If this is another secret. No, not a secret, a choice. He pulled back enough to meet my eyes. I gave up the Senate seat. I blinked. What? The Oversight Committee position, the one they promised me in exchange for. He swallowed. For you. I withdrew my name this morning. Dante, that was the biggest political opportunity of your career. I don't care. His hands tightened on my waist. I don't want anything that came from using you. I don't want power built on your pain. I just want you. However you'll have me. He means it. God, he actually gave it all up. For me. The thought hit me with devastating clarity. This was the cost, the sacrifice that made forgiveness possible. You're sure? I whispered. I've never been more sure of anything. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, the gesture so tender it made my chest ache. You told me we were equals. I'm proving it. Something in me finally let go. The last wall, the final guard. All of it crumbled under the weight of how much this man loved me. Take me to bed, I said. Dante's breath caught. Ethan, not the couch. Well, not the floor. I looked up at him, letting him see everything I'd been holding back. Your bed. Our bed. I'm ready. The walk to the bedroom felt both endless and too fast. Dante kept glancing at me like he was afraid I'd disappear. Like this was a dream he was terrified of waking from. This is real. He's real. I get to keep this. His thoughts were so full of wonder, they made my eyes sting. We crossed the threshold together, and I turned to face him in the soft lamplight. I forgive you, I said simply. Dante went very still. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I'm choosing to. I stepped closer, hands sliding up his chest. You made mistakes. You lied to protect me when you should have trusted me to protect myself. But you also sacrificed everything to make it right. And I'm done punishing us both for your stupid, well-intentioned disasters. His laugh was wet. Stupid, well-intentioned disasters? It's going on your tombstone. I pulled him down and kissed him softly. Right under beloved husband. Husband, he repeated against my lips. I like the sound of that. Good, because you're stuck with me now. What happened next was tender and overwhelming, and absolutely nothing I'm sharing with anyone else. But I will say this. When Dante finally renewed his mark on my neck, teeth gentle but possessive over the old scar, I felt the mating bond snap into place like coming home. Like every scared, broken piece of me suddenly had a place to rest. And when I bit him back, claiming him as thoroughly as he claimed me, the sound he made was worth every moment of fear and doubt that had led us here. Hours later, wrapped in expensive sheets with Dante's heartbeat steady beneath my ear, I let myself think about the opening hook that had started all of this. Beautiful things in my life never lasted long. What are you smiling about? Dante murmured, fingers tracing lazy patterns on my spine. I tilted my head up to look at him. Just thinking. Dangerous habit. Says the man who literally overthinks everything. He tugged me closer, pressing a kiss to my forehead. Fair point. Outside, the city glittered with 1,000 lights. Inside, we'd built something fragile and fierce, and entirely ours. Dante, I said quietly. I love you. His arms tightened around me, and I felt the emotion crash through his thoughts like a tidal wave. I love you. I love you. I'll never stop loving you. I love you too, he whispered into my hair. Okay, my beautiful, sassy, telepathic disaster of an Omega. I bit his shoulder lightly in retaliation, and his laugh rumbled through both of us. And I realized with sudden, brilliant clarity, beautiful things in my life never lasted long, except this one would, because I'd finally found someone worth fighting for, worth staying for, worth choosing every single day for the rest of my life. Forever, I murmured against his skin. Dante's hand found mine, fingers threading through mine, platinum wedding bands catching the light. Forever, he agreed. And for the first time in my life, I actually believed it.